IVM.
This is Storytellers and Storysellers live on tape. You're listening to me, Vineet Kanabar, on the IVM Podcast Network. Today, I am very excited to bring you a guest who, I really want to call him the Amitabh Bachchan of podcasts, but I don't want to do that because that phrase is just so overused, but he is kind of the Amitabh Bachchan of fiction podcasts. Please join me in welcoming Mantra Mugdh on the show. Mantra, great to have you here. I'll introduce you in a second, but really fantastic to have you here. I've been looking for fiction podcasts in this country, and then I found the universe of podcasts, and I'm so glad you've made time to talk to us here. Welcome to the show, Mantra.
भाई बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद विनीत जी आपने आज यहाँ पर मुझे जिस तरीके से स्वागत किया है मेरा मैं आप किस दिल से आपका धन्यवाद करूं Thanks, Vineet. That's absolutely the most amazing compliment that it could ever be. I mean, who doesn't love Amitabh Bachchan? And we've had the privilege of having Amitabh Bachchan on one of our series also, and it's been absolutely fantastic to work with people who really enjoy this medium too. And thank you, Vineet, for inviting me on your podcast. I've been following your work, and it's like I said before we even began this recording, that I'm glad that you put up a platform where people who've been really working on behalf of their passion are being showcased. Thanks, Vineet. Thank you.
It's so kind of you to say that. And that's exactly what it is, right? I think the place we're in with podcasting, it is a project of passion, a labor of love, whatever sort of three-word phrase you want to call it. But I'm so glad to have you here. I have lots of questions for you as a podcaster, as an actor now with your role in High, as someone who's successfully transitioned from radio and RJing into now sort of a preeminent position in podcasting. Let's get started right there, right? Why don't you tell us about how that has been for you, right? You've been in radio for, I'm going to say 14, 15 years about?
Around 20 now, Vineet, because we started off in the...
Wow.
Yeah, it's almost been 2 decades, man. It's surprising that the first ever private FM radio station in India was launched on 4th of October 2001 in Indore, which is my hometown. And, the first private FM station like Radio Mirchi Indore or Radio City Bangalore, they started off almost simultaneously. And it's been 20 years. I just realized it myself, and I was jamming with a few friends of mine who were the True Bloods, the first batch of radio. And I said, we've gone old, friends. It's been, come on. At one point of time when we started off, Vineet, I was a hotelier before that. And right. When I was about to enter the radio industry, my mother said the same thing. Ye radio kya hai? What is this? Kaun si radio ki baat kar rahe? Because in those days, all there was All India Radio. Right. And All India Radio bhi, एक limited उसमें ही था. Rural sectors में ज़्यादा था. Urban में उतना शायद नहीं चलता था. लेकिन that we are at the same position today. Imagine people are saying, my mom saying, "Abhi ye podcast kya hai?"
Full circle.
How to explain this to your moms, Vineet?
I have tried, and I have been a little bit successful, but I'm with you there. It's a full circle. It's a brand new medium. It's not really a brand new medium. Again, it's been around for 15, 16 years, but it's having its moment right now. And I'm glad that people like you are at the forefront of this, right? Let me dial back the years a little bit. And I'm not going to say that you're old. I'm going to say you're aging like fine wine with the kind of work that's coming forward. But let's dial back the years a little bit. And in a nutshell, if you can tell us about your journey with radio. I know you've won multiple awards. You've worked at Mirchi, City, the other biggies as well. How was that experience, and how did that really bring you to podcasting? I know it's 20 years in maybe 3 minutes, but if you can give us a brief tour.
Yeah, radio has been my true love, Vineet. I love the medium. I love the audio medium tremendously. I can say this after all these years when I've worked with almost all the other mediums, may it be stage, may it be cinema, may it be television. After working in all the mediums, I realized that audio or radio as a medium or as a genre has always enticed me, always encouraged me to make more stuff, because I believe it's a blind man's television. It's I keep using this phrase. Hindi mein kehte hain netrahin ka chalchitra hai ye, Vineet. And you let your listener make your own films, make your own visuals inside their head. I mean, like they also say that mind is a excellent servant but a terrible master. And you give the mind a couple of words and the mind will do the rest. So I always use this tricks with my friends. Vinny, don't think of a pink elephant. Don't think of a pink elephant. Don't think of a pink elephant with a little rat sitting on its head. Maybe having a cornetto ice cream or something like that.
See, the power everything, right there.
The power of suggestions, and here you go, man. You thought of a pink elephant who, I mean, generally don't even exist. So unless it's holy. Okay, sorry, it's a bad one.
Or unless it's Vishal Bharadwaj's Matru Ki Bijli Ka Mandola.
Oh yes, man. I love Vishal Bharadwaj and his world, man.
It's just beautiful. That way. But I link this back. Where was your first brush with podcasts? I mean, clearly you've spent so much time in audio. You've used the medium to its fullest potential. You've transitioned into on-screen work as well. But where was your first brush with podcasts? Where did you realize what this medium could be, what the power of the storytelling here could be for you?
If you're specifically asking about podcasts, Vineet, and not radio, then it's a different answer altogether. Because yes, you're right. Podcasts have been they've been around for much longer than we Indians know it. Because हमारे यहाँ unfortunately सारी की सारी चीजें 10-20 साल बाद ही आती हैं. ये क्या problem है इस दुनिया का मुझे समझ में नहीं आता. The things that are launched technologically wise, entertainment wise, or anything वो वहाँ पर पहले होता है और उसके 10, 12, 15 साल बाद यहाँ पर आता है. So podcast को हिंदुस्तान में आने में थोड़ा सा वक्त लगा. But as you clearly know that even late 90s, early 2000s में ही West में podcast का ट्रेंड चालू हो चुका था. एंड जहां तक कि मेरा जॉनर है, विच इज ऑडियो फिक्शन, एज स्पेसिफिकली यू मेंशन्ड इट, मेरे लिए बीबीसी के रेडियो ड्रामास या ऑल इंडिया रेडियो के जो ड्रामास होते थे, हवा महल नाम का एक नाटक आया करता था. विनीत, इफ यू आस्क योर फोक्स दे विल टेल यू दैट एट वन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम हवा महल के लिए अपॉइंटमेंट लिसनरशिप हुआ करती थी. Families would get together at a certain time, finish their household chores and sit in front of their radio set. It's not even a TV jisko dekhna hai. Right. They would sit in front of the radio set and listen to that half an hour program. And it was an experience, just like it's an experience to go to a cinema hall and watch things on a 70mm. That's the same way it happened. So for me also, it happened through that. I used to be as a young student researcher sort of a thing. मुझे बड़ा मजा आता था. मैं थिएटर से बहुत ज्यादा जुड़ा हुआ था. तो हमारे पास में ऑल इंडिया रेडियो का स्टूडियो हुआ करता था. एंड मैं किसी पहचान के थ्रू वहां जाया करता था. महीने में एक बार युवा वाणी नाम का एक प्रोग्राम होता था. वो होस्ट किया करते थे मेरे मित्र. तो मैं उनके साथ जाता था. I saw recording studios. I saw Folly Studios, Vineet, right. Folly Studios, which were as big as a football ground.
Wow.
It was absolutely. एक तो गवर्नमेंट के बाद बहुत पैसा रहता है, तो आपको मालूम है दूरदर्शन के ऑफिसेज, ऑल इंडिया रेडियो के ऑफिसेज जनरली बड़े होते हैं. सरकारी ऑफिसेज जनरली बड़े होते हैं क्योंकि वो पुराने महलों में या पुरानी बड़ी इमारतों में बसे हुए होते हैं. तो ये फॉली स्टूडियो में मैंने देखा, मेरे लिए तो इट वाज लाइक अ रूम फुल ऑफ टॉयज कि यार इतनी सारी चीजें रखी हैं और किस चीज से क्या आवाज निकलती है. विनीत, वो सोच के, वो सुन के मैं हैरान रह गया कि आप एक माचिस के डिब्बे से किसी एक चीज की आवाज निकाल सकते हैं, आप एल्यूमिनियम शीट से बिजली की आवाज निकाल सकते हैं, आप ईंटों से फुटस्टेप्स की आवाज निकाल सकते हैं. सो that was an experience that really
and this was all in Indore, or
excited me a lot.
You came across all
Indore? Yeah, I was in Indore. Right. Indore में जाया करता ही था. बस उसके अलावा every time there were a lot of recording studios also in the vicinity जहाँ पर मैं किसी तरीके से टकरा गया वहाँ पे. Right. And I think it was a pull. It was an attraction. That's how it happened.
That's just such a throwback to another time, and yet it just feels like an experience that would be just such an eye-opening thing, right? It must be like you said, stepping into that room. It's a room full of toys for someone who really truly understands and is passionate about the medium. How did you then go from there to podcast, right? I mean, radio, such a ubiquitous medium. हर तरफ radio है, but it's still considered slightly old school. Podcast as well, for that matter, came around in 2004, 2005. पर India में शायद 2013-14 में थोड़ी बात होनी शुरू हुई पॉडकास्ट के बारे में. अब जाके everybody is excited. Oh yeah, podcasts are happening. You've got such a fantastic universe of podcasts happening as well. But I would love to know what your thought process was when 10 years, 12 years into your radio career, this new shiny new medium comes around and the potential of it is completely untapped. What were your thoughts at that time? How did you sort of adapt or sort of encounter this medium in the beginning? I would love to know.
I think it was a general progression for me from radio to the podcast world because it's a larger universe of the same genre. And like you said, Vineet, radio is a music medium. It will always primarily be a medium what people want to consume for the music. Radio jockeys, what we used to do were the cherry on the cake. We were not the cake over there. And that's what I tell a lot of my radio friends who are like, अरे यार podcast करें क्या? Podcast के अंदर तो क्या है? ऐसा क्या है जो हमने नहीं किया हुआ है? But I realize, and that's absolutely true also for me also, because I've been behind the microphone for the last so many years. When podcast happened, it was an extension of what I had already been doing. But for me specifically, audio fiction is something that really excited me. That was something that I wanted to tap upon. And for me, shows like what the Gimlet Media has been doing with Homecoming or what Limetown did many, many years back. Limetown was one of the first new age podcast fictions that I had heard, and I was absolutely blown away. And then many shows, may it be the Serial or may it be the Twilight Zone, all these shows really, and BBC radio dramas, of course, were very, very exciting for me. I loved that medium. I loved storytelling, and I thought it was more of an extension of radio and theater, both for me. And because I love both these mediums so much, I love theater, I love live performances. I love to have the audience right in front of me and perform in front of them. And at the same time, I love audio. So I thought kahin na kahin ye marriage lana zaruri hai of theater and audio. And that's why I call them audio plays. A lot of people call them audio web series or audio fiction, whatever you want to call them, but I still call them audio plays.
I think that's the most complete and succinct description of podcasts I've heard. It's theater and radio coming together, and there's such a gap, right? In India, like you mentioned, it's a music and movie discussion sort of a medium, like what radio is. There's so many kinds of programming जो radio पे होता ही नहीं है in India, right? Sure, you'll have the odd bioscope की बातें.
Absolutely, bro. हाँ नहीं, I know exactly where you're going, and you're absolutely right कि रेडियो पे कभी वो मौका दिया ही नहीं, जबकि they had such a huge platform. Come on, the radio, जितनी पहुंच FM की है, जितनी पहुंच रेडियो की है और हमेशा रहेगी भी. No podcast, no web, no TV, nothing can reach. देखना जिस दिन सबसे ज्यादा जरूरत पड़ेगी ना विनीत, उस दिन रेडियो काम आता है. And I'm talking about days like 26/11. I'm talking about days when floods were happening in Assam, or I'm talking about days where natural calamities, and radio was used for absolute current to current updates, और मतलब live updates beyond. कुछ जगहों पे रेडियो को आप कभी बीट नहीं कर पाएंगे. And it's unfortunate that the private FM industry at this point of time is standing on एक ऐसे जोन में खड़ी हुई है, एक ऐसे चौराहे पे खड़ी हुई है जहाँ पे उसको अपने ही डिजिटल मीडियम से खतरा है. बिल्कुल. उसको उसी का ऑनलाइन चैनल जो है उसके टेरेस्ट्रियल चैनल को कंपटीशन दे रहा है, एंड इतना कंपटीशन दे रहा है कि वो टेरेस्ट्रियल कब तक के खड़ा रह पाएगा, ये बहुत चिंता का विषय है. It's absolutely, I mean, we all think about it that let's not kill a medium that has वापस से किसी तरीके से वो याद है पुराना गाना वीडियो किल द रेडियो स्टार. बिल्कुल. उसके बाद कितने टाइम तक के there was a downslide, फिर आया रेडियो. Now you cannot let your own digital medium kill you. Right.
I mean, it's a hard fight that I don't see that getting. I mean, radio winning that in the long run. While what you said is
level playing field nahi hai, Vineet. I mean, at this point of time, it's almost like a sabotage because the private FM industry is going through such a huge sabotage that where do you listen to radio? Tell me that. कहाँ सुनेगा तू FM? तेरे फोन पे है ऐप?
फोन पे नहीं है. The only place I listen to FM is in the car.
Vineet, फोन पे ऐप नहीं है रेडियो का. The most basic thing. आज से 20 साल पहले वो जो छोटा सा नोकिया आया था ना गुलाबी कलर का, उसके अंदर इस तरीके से आप वायर लगा के रेडियो सुन सकते थे, तब था। आज 2021 में you cannot have a live streaming radio app. You know what the reason behind that is? No, I'm not just randomly saying it. The reason behind that is finances.
Right.
And the fact is music labels don't want their songs to just play out like that.
Absolutely.
They want digital apps के ऊपर वो गाने बजे तो उसकी accountability रहे. Radio पे क्या है? Accountability नहीं है.
बिल्कुल.
But उसके कारण that entire radio industry जो suffer कर रहा है, because if you don't have it on your phone, you will not listen to it.
No, for sure. And I mean, that service has also been replaced by the streaming services and all of that in place. On demand is so much more digital, so to speak, right? That's what this generation is also sort of.
इसका solution निकले तो अच्छा है.
बिल्कुल. Let me pivot this away from radio onto podcasts a little bit. I want to know, and I mean, the reason why I want to know this specifically from you is while there are a lot of podcasts that are emerging, and IVM does a lot of podcasts, and other players are there creating so many more podcasts as well, fiction podcasting is still, I feel, in its very, very nascent stage in India. We're just about getting started, and there are some lovely podcasts out there with fiction. You named all of them globally, but in India, that journey has just started. Where did the inspiration for MM Talkies then, in the company that's creating Bhaskar Bose and I Hear You and the upcoming Darr Raaz with Dr. Phobia, where did the inspiration for fiction podcasting come, and how did you start that journey? I would love to know what your state of mind was then. What was the consideration? What was the opportunity that you saw?
Well, first of all, Vineet, the reason why it is not, I mean, as you called it, nascent, and it is not many people are doing it, that's because it's not easy.
Right.
Podcast की दुनिया बटी हुई है. Podcast यहाँ पर एक podcast है जो आप और मैं कर रहे हैं. You and me are doing it. Here I am sitting at my home. You're sitting in Nagpur. We're having a conversation over the phone, and ban gaya podcast. But this, I can't make Bhaskar Bose like this. It needs almost the same procedure that it takes to make a play or a film. It starts from the script, it goes to casting, it goes to that recording, and that recording is so important when you do it as a group, when you do it as a cast together. Then, of course, the background music, the foley, and everything that goes into it. So it's almost like making a dish, Vineet, and I feel like a chef when I do that. And maybe that's the reason why, that's what got me going into this, because I love, like I said again, storytelling as theater, as the medium, and audio as the genre. I wanted to mix them up together. So podcast, yes, I've been doing it on radio or off radio for 20 years now. But this was something that excited me more than just having a conversation, which I absolutely love. I love the 90% of content that is out there in the podcast world, which is basically conversations between two people, interviews, or discussions on topics. But this is an absolutely specialized genre. It requires an absolute different approach. It cannot be approached the same way you approach podcasts.
It's very, 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 very clear to me that there are two schools of thought here, right? There is the talk and conversation podcast, and then there is fiction. You said it's exactly like doing a play. There's an entire process of casting, there's an entire process of scripting, there's an entire process of the production that goes on behind the scenes. Tell me why then in this entire space as well, right? What you've chosen to do is what could be the hardest to deliver, which is thriller or crime or fiction, because you're going for a very specific emotion. You're going for a very specific effect. And I was listening to some of the oldest episodes of Bhaskar Bose, and then I was listening to some of the new ones. And there's a definite evolution there. There's a definite evolution in the style. There's a definite evolution in the way it's been produced. There's definitely evolution in the way that it has been written. Mantra, can you give us some notes about what have been your learnings since you started with Bhaskar Bose and the most recent one that's coming out with Darr Raaz? What have been some of those learnings in this admittedly difficult craft?
I mean, yeah, you're right about that. And exactly the way in theater, with radio also it happens, or these audio fiction, what happens is what you're creating is like a living organism. The way you said what you heard in the first few episodes till what you're hearing now in our last few episodes or the current episodes that are coming, Bhaskar Bose is evolving.
Absolutely.
Or our shows are also evolving because we thrive on our audience, just the way a theater actor or a theater performer thrives on the audience. If the audience gives back something, you adapt according to that. And that's why it's most beautiful is it's a zinda hai wo. ये मीडियम जिंदा है, ये सांस ले रहा है आपके साथ साथ, तो it's beating with you rather than, I mean, I always believe, मैं हमेशा सोचा करता था, एक बार thought आया था while I was sitting inside a cinema hall and watching a film on a big screen, and I said, there's nobody actually there. It's a wall. They're just projecting a few lights on it. Salman Khan is not there. So no matter what happens to me, he is not going to respond. But when I saw a theater play and when I looked into the eyes of an actor, I knew that we connected somewhere. And the same way, I try my best. Ki, bhale hi ye audio show, if you listen to all our episodes, it will almost, you will feel as if ye tere aaspas ho raha hai. Ye kuch na kuch chal raha hai. It's a part of your life. I think that was a big thrill. That was something that worked well for me. And as you said, the other series also that are coming up, or the second series, the detective series that we did with Ahana, or the new show that is launching tomorrow. In fact, what's the date tomorrow, Vineet?
So we're recording this on the 7th of April, and this will go out on the 8th of April, which is the same day that Darr Dr. Phobia comes out.
Yeah, so Darr it's coming out today. Horror as a genre has really worked well in the audio medium. लोगों की बहुत भट्टी है अरविंद, उनके कान में बोल दो भूत है, उनको दिख जाता है भूत है.
I can't agree more. I was listening to the trailer of Darr and
who's that behind you?
Oh, nice try.
Vineet.
Nice try there.
Vineet, your vision, that's changed.
Oh shit. I literally have goosebumps. I have goosebumps. I'm telling you that. I'm not scared easily, but when you did that for a second, I had goosebumps. And I had that same feeling, I'll tell you, when I was listening to the trailer of Darr and the part where the makdi piece happens in the beginning. Oh man. It's just beautiful. And that's what I love.
Tapping on to almost everything. So in fact, you can help me making this show also. Like I said, it's a living organism. Vineet, what's your worst phobia? What's your most scariest phobia? Kiske upar? Because we're looking for topics to make shows on. The spider wala hamara ek episode hai. And I guarantee you, when you listen to that on that headphone of yours,
I'm bracing myself for some chills. But I'll tell you, I have a very weird phobia, which is that I'll lose my hair.
Ooh, that's. I can make a story around that. I can. And this is how it happens, Vineet. This is how we are working on phobia also. What we are trying to figure out is, हमारे हर episode के अंदर एक ऐसे phobia को touch करते हैं जो लोगों को है वो relate करे और कम से कम relate करे ना करे उनको मालूम है हाँ ऐसा मतलब है. हर किसी ना किसी को तो हाइड्रोफोबिया है, हर घेरे का डर. There are fears of clowns, which is called coulrophobia. There is a fear of rain, it's called umbrophobia. There is fear of open oceans, it's called thalassophobia. In सारे episodes के ऊपर हम लोग बना रहे हैं about how. So in every episode you will. So in my thalassophobia episode, I will take you deep down inside the ocean. In the umbrophobia, I will take you in the middle of a jungle where it will rain like it has never rained before. In coulrophobia episode, I will get that clown to come right behind your ears and say, "Peekaboo."
I'm bracing myself. I have heard you've also got an episode on the fear of pigeons, which is peristerophobia.
I dedicate this to a friend of mine called Rohan Rane. I knew him. He used to work at Red FM. Bro, I've never seen anybody freak out on seeing pigeons the way he has. He almost fell off his balcony when a pigeon came right in front of him. And I've seen him panic like, so it is there. And I completely agree that for a few people, for maybe you and me are talking about this, aise kaise hota yaar? But for people who have it, it's really, really, really scary. So a lot of such stuff are bringing fears to your ears.
Oh, wow. That's a tagline there. I'm going to use that in my day job. But I mean, what's really exciting, and I got the chills, like I said, when I heard that spider piece, that makdi ke jale wala piece, and that's what's really exciting, right? This medium, it's so linear. It's such a power of suggestion sort of a thing, and then you've got your mind and the darkness inside your mind, or the brightness inside your mind, whichever way you like it. all you need is just a nudge. All you need is just a push for the listener to immerse themselves in it. And that's what's got me so excited with the whole slate of stuff that is doing right now. I really want to know, is there a sort of set process that you have in terms of how you pick your stories or develop them? And the reason I'm asking you this is, again, I come from a video storytelling company called TVF at a point in time, and it was super important for us to have a storytelling philosophy, right? Either that philosophy will guide what the universe is going to be, or that philosophy will guide how the story will develop, or its phasing, or its texture. How would you describe that for the slate of shows that you guys are doing?
What slightly differs between both the mediums is that you're absolutely right. The power of suggestion makes a lot of difference in the audio medium. So our storytelling really needs to involve the listener. So it is such an intimate medium, Vineet. You're watching TV, you know it's a disconnect. I mean, you know that you are here, you're watching the stuff in front of your screen. With the audio medium, what happens is you almost get transported inside the scene. So if the characters are walking in the scene inside a dark room, your listener starts traveling with them. And that's when things start happening. And it's the personal consumption of the content that is coming towards you. When I say personal consumption, it is actually affecting you. That's where a lot of difference happens. So our storytelling, and when you ask the question about how we select our stories or how we go about it, like I said before, it's a living organism. We breathe, we grow, we absorb, we let everything around us develop what's happening within us. I mean, it's the best way to go about it for me. And Bhaskar Bose being the biggest example, when we started off with Bhaskar Bose, we thought he was always a graphic novel character for us, and he was always there. In earlier, we used the telephone rings, which were like the 70s and the 80s, those old big phones, because we wanted to create a world of the 70s and the 80s and stuff like that. But with progression in 40 cases right now, my character has come into 2021, and he will continue to live forever and ever and never grow old or never grow young. Bhaskar Bose and Bikesh Das, they have become what they are forever and ever. I can take them in Egypt and work on in the pyramids. I can take them into the future, do whatever with them. We create characters, and characters that people relate to, characters that people love being with. Characters जिनके साथ में ये घूमने निकलना चाहेंगे. Every time it's an adventure.
Beautiful. It kind of reminds me of The Phantom, the way The Phantom had generations. I don't know if you've read that old comic, and he had a generation. There's an 18th Phantom, and 19th Phantom, and 21st Phantom, and he could pretty much time travel within those stories. And I get that feeling sometimes with Bhaskar Bose as well. And what I really love, and I heard a few episodes of I Hear You as well. Both of them seem to be such different universes, such different, I would say the same universe, but such different characterizations, such different methodologies within the audio space, right? For my listeners, while Bhaskar is more of a Sherlock Holmes, Feluda type of a character, you have Detective Priyamvada, that's played by Ahana Kumra in I Hear You, who's a clairaudient detective, right? Now, it's a completely different way of approaching the detective genre, pretty much like The Mentalist, if for those who've seen that show, where she's got this sort of psychic connection where she can talk to people who've passed away beyond the pale. Now with Dr. Phobia, right, you pretty much set up what is the most compelling thriller detective universe in podcasting. Can you tell us a little bit more about how these characters interplay with each other? Is that something that's on the cards? Will we have guesting? Will we have universes crossing over? Would love to know what the future of these characters is going to be like.
Yes, definitely that's on the cards, Vineet. And when we realized with Bhaskar Bose is people enjoyed thrillers as a genre. They were enjoying listening to these stories on Spotify. And that's where me and Uni, who's been an absolute gem of a person to work with in Spotify. He is a connoisseur that every artist should if he deserves it, one should have Unni as a connoisseur, because he knows how to approach an art and let the artist do what they think is the best for their art. And that's how it happened. We realized, we jammed together and figured that, all right, if the genre of thrillers or detectives is working, then can we work towards a few more of the same kind? And we definitely wanted a female detective, so we got Detective Priyambada on board, and that's when I jammed with this amazing writer and a podcaster herself, Akanksha Thapliyal Bhatt. And the beauty of it was, I never knew this girl. She was somewhere in Dehradun. She just got in touch when she was listening to a few of our shows. She used to hear Bhaskar Bose. She got in touch. She gave a couple of ideas. We jammed, and here we go. We have a show together.
Fantastic.
That's how beautiful the world is. Somebody who I'd never. The first time I met her was when our show was approved and everything, and she said, "Ab main Bombay aati hu, saath mein baith ke likhenge, nahi to tab tak ke we were only talking through a phone or communicating over emails." But that's how I hear you happen. Yeah, so that's how wonderful. That's why I say, Vineet, it's a living organism. You let it breathe, you let it flow, and rasta ban jata hai.
बहुत ही.
You need to have a method to madness. I always agree that you need to have a method to this madness. And वो आधी आंख बंद और आधी खुली, आधी अंतर्मन के लिए, आधी बाहर की दुनिया के लिए, तो साथ में combine करके चलते चलो.
बिल्कुल. What I'm hearing is you start with a hypothesis that we want to do something in the detective space. The audience is loving it, and then you let the influences, the people just come together, and like a sponge coming together, like a living organism, like you mentioned, it comes together for the show. Let me ask you this, and this is one of the things that I myself as a podcaster have faced as a challenge, right? As someone who comes from a video background or from a YouTube background, where मैंने अगर वीडियो रिलीज किया, मैं आपको 3 घंटे में बता सकता हूँ ये वीडियो हिट होगा या फ्लॉप, और हिट होगा तो कितना हिट होगा, फ्लॉप होगा तो कितना फ्लॉप होगा, क्योंकि मुझे ऑडियंस का रिएक्शन इमीडिएटली दिखता है. देयर आर कमेंट्स देयर आर लाइक्स, डिसलाइक्स, देयर आर लॉट ऑफ एनालिटिक्स, बहुत कुछ किया जा सकता है. पॉडकास्ट में अभी भी वो फ्रेमवर्क ठीक से पूरी तरह से सेट नहीं है. हाउ डू यू देन gauge the audience's reaction? What parts they are really liking? What parts they feel could be different? How do you get them to play a more important role in shaping the future of the show? And I ask you this, just let me just qualify this question a little bit, is because podcasts to me feel like a really large, unending sort of a medium. I mean, not in the TV show के serial type 500 episode बनाए, not that way, but it's a slow burning medium, right? It's a medium that takes its time to start off, and then once you started it off, audiences don't want you to stop. They want you to keep going. They want you to keep giving them what they want. And I'll give you, I mean, it's a callback to what you said earlier. I have seen people wait for an episode of Bhaskar Bose, right? They will write comments on Twitter and they will write comments elsewhere. But how do you then balance both audience feedback, your own creativity, and their expectation together, given that there is still a little bit of gap between audience जो बोलती है वो पता कैसे चले?
नहीं, बिल्कुल सही कहा विनीत. ये इंस्टेंट ग्रेटिफिकेशन की दुनिया है भी और नहीं भी. एक तो आपने एपिसोड डाला और आपको इंस्टेंटली मालूम पड़ा जो होता है हमारे शोज के साथ में खासम खास. लेकिन एक और दुनिया है of people catching up with the episodes as binge listening.
Right.
कई सारे हमारे listeners हैं who have a crazy habit, विनीत. They would, मतलब almost होता है ना कि 3 हफ्ते जानबूझ के वेट कर रहे हैं,
right.
नहीं सुन रहे हैं, so that right. एक साथ वो 3 एपिसोड्स के एक फ्लो के अंदर रात भर बैठ के सुन पाए. उनको बिंज लिस्निंग, अजीब अजीब शौक पालते हैं लोग भाई, है ऐसा. मेरे को इस टाइप के रिएक्शंस मिलते हैं लोगों से कि they saying that why don't you release maybe 10 episodes together so that we can binge listen, because it's almost like आपने चालू किया है, 2 एपिसोड्स होते हैं 15-15 मिनट के, आधे घंटे के अंदर आपको स्वाद लगा ही है कि the story is over, so they want more and more. So कई बार आपको जिस दिन आपका एपिसोड रिलीज होता है उस दिन तो आपको जो मिलना मालूम पड़ता है, लाइक यू सेड विनीत, कि मैं आपको आधे घंटे में बता सकता हूँ ये हिट है या फ्लॉप है या चालू ये चलेगा या नहीं चलेगा. बट विनीत, वी आर इन द वर्ल्ड ऑफ दिस वर्ल्ड वाइड वेब, जहां पे एक बार जो चीज डाल दी आपने, वो कब जाके किस दिन गति पकड़ेगी वो कोई नहीं जानता. कौन कौन सा कंटेंट जो आज से 20-20, 30-30 साल पुराना सडनली आज यहाँ पर वायरल हो जाता है. I know one thing for sure, that भास्कर बोस का जो एपिसोड हमने आज से साल भर पहले चलाया था, कई सारे लोग आज डिस्कवर कर रहे हैं उसको और आज सुन के बता रहे हैं, अरे वाह भाई क्या बेहतरीन एपिसोड था आपका वो. एंड दैट विल कंटिन्यू टू हैपन फॉर मेनी मेनी इयर्स टू कम नाउ. So कब मेरा एंड लाइन कहाँ है जहां पे मैं बताऊं कि अब इस दिन के तक मैं बता सकता हूँ कि वाह मेरा शो के इतने लिसन्स आए हैं या इतने कम आए हैं या इतना ज्यादा आए हैं. इट विल कीप ऑन ग्रोइंग. इट्स अ ग्रोइंग ऑर्गेनिज्म.
So how do you then plan for a show?
Oh no, but what you said, Vineet. Sorry, I forgot to answer the other question of yours, where you said that how do we get our people's reaction to it, and that's what I said. कि किस तरीके से उनसे लेके ही शो का मतलब शो के अंदर और जान आती. For example, Vineet, I mean the show that we are launching, Darr का Raaz, with Dr. Phobia. The name itself has been suggested by our listeners. We did a contest and with Spotify, and we asked our listeners कि boss ये हमारा show है. And it was, by the way, a genuine problem, a genuine thing that we were facing back home between M&M Talkies and Spotify कि यार नाम डॉक्टर फोबिया के साथ कुछ एक नाम होना चाहिए. हमने 10 सोचे. हमने बोला यार ऐसा करो ना, जो सुनने वाले हैं उनसे ही पूछ लेते हैं. We literally made a video and a post and we asked them कि यार ये शो है, एक डॉक्टर फोबिया है, वो लोगों के फोबिया से उनको वो निजात दिलाता है. एंड ही यूजेस पास्ट लाइफ रिग्रेशन ताकि आपको मालूम पड़े कि आपका जो डर है उसके पीछे कहानी क्या है. तो लोगों ने, and there were such wonderful responses, and we ended up taking this which was unanimously selected by Spotify and M&M team, and it was one of our listeners who gave that suggestion. So that's how involved M&M Talkies is with their listeners.
Beautiful, beautiful. Staying with Darr का राज, आपने भी कोई मतलब जैसे आप कह रहे थे 10-15 साल पुरानी एक मेमोरी, एक कलेक्टिव मेमोरी लेके कास्ट किया है किसी को इस शो में. Someone who is very popular or was very popular as a character on many TV sets. I think one of the most iconic advertising characters in this country ever, Mr. Rajesh Khera, also once upon a time known as the Onida Devil, and he's making a comeback in this show. Tell us about that, both the casting choice and what you're expecting audiences to feel to hear him back in their ears.
यार मैं और खेरा साहब साथ में एक सीरीज कर रहे थे. Last year we were shooting together for one of our series and we were in Nepal together. And कहीं रात को कहीं पर बैठ के हम लोगों की पार्टी चल रही थी, बैठक चल रही थी. एंड खेरा साहब ने अपने अंदाज में 2-3 कुछ कहानियां ऐसी सुनाई और मतलब कुछ बातें कर रहे थे. एंड आई वाज कंटिन्यूअसली लिसनिंग. मैंने बोला यार इसे तो रिकॉर्ड करके डाल देना चाहिए. and he's a fantastic performer, that's for sure, and a बहुत बिंदास chilled out इंसान है. वो आते भी है, ये क्या करवा रहा है तू मुझसे, you sure about this? तो मैंने कहा हाँ खेरा साहब I am sure. हाँ ठीक है, फिर मेरे को पता नहीं, बता दे, ये मैंने किया नहीं है. And that's the beauty of him, that he surrenders and he's done a fabulous job. The first episode is out. The best part is when he takes you into that past life regression, when he tells you your eyes are getting heavy, आप सो रहे हैं, आपके सामने 3 दरवाजे हैं, एक दरवाजा खोलिए, and you can clearly see those 3 doors or everything that he's telling you. So वो hypnotize कर देगा लोगों को. मुझे बस डर है ये उसको सुनते सुनते लोग कहीं सही में hypnotize ना हो जाए. That will be something. Podcast के जरिए लोग वो hypnotize.
I think if that happens, it's done.
But yeah, it's good fun, man. It's good fun. It's
बिल्कुल. I think that is the biggest success story.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited. I think अगर ऐसा हुआ, if people start reporting getting hypnotized by Darr का राज, Dr. Phobia on the or just by listening to the podcast, I think that as a creator for you would be the biggest success story. Again, it's a little scary, but it'll be a massive achievement if it happens.
No, but Vineet, that I mean, when every time I say that this medium, may it be radio, may it be podcast, is a very intimate medium, I really, really mean it. I have had experience of listeners. I mean, and this is an absolutely true story that I'm telling you. We once had a listener who had come to our radio station and he demanded to meet all the radio jockeys because he thought that the radio jockeys were talking to him every day on air, specifically to him, telling him what to do, telling him what not to do. And he said, stop doing this to me.
Wow.
He would come and ask कि जो आपके आप दोपहर वाले रेडियो जॉकी ने आके बोला कि आज आज आलू का पराठा खाना है, मैं तब से आलू का पराठा मुझे खाने का मन कर रहा है, मैं why did he do that to me, why did he do that to me, वो मतलब लिटरली यार सिचुएशन तक पहुंच गई कभी कभार.
Wow, that is massive impact.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's something different. It seems like somebody's talking to you in your ears. That's about it. It's as basic as it gets. There's somebody talking to you in your ears. If he tells you sometimes to do something, you end up doing it. It seems like someone's talking to you.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this, Mantra. Within the podcasting universe, you've also played different roles. You're a creator, an entrepreneur. You're someone who's obviously a very potent voice talent. You've developed stuff. What part of the process do you enjoy the most?
Personally, I love the designing part. I love designing my shows. A lot of people tell me, यार ये तुम personally अपने हाथ से डिश बनाते रहोगे तो कैसे चलेगा, कब तक चलेगा, कितने डिशेस बना लोगे. बट वो वॉइस ओवर्स के बाद में उसके बीच में उन डायलॉग्स के बीच में वो परफेक्ट गैप, उसके लिए वो परफेक्ट फॉली कहीं से मिल जाना. हम कुछ ऐसे फॉलीज यूज करते हैं, साउंड इफेक्ट्स लगाते हैं ब्रो कि लिसनर को लगता है उसके साथ रियली में हो रहा है वो चीज. सो फॉर एग्जांपल वी हैव दिस 3-dimensional door knock which we recorded on our binaural microphone. By the way, binaural sounds is what I involve a lot in my sound designing, which is 3-dimensional sound, gives you the feeling of a depth of sound around you. So कई बार हमारे शो के अंदर कैरेक्टर के दरवाजे पे किसी ने नॉक किया है, and that with that door knock my listeners, and I've seen this with my own eyes, people are listening to and they suddenly get up and go and open their door thinking there's somebody outside. Or the phone vibrator that kabhi kabar hamare character ka phone vibrate kar raha hai, you will end up picking up your phone because we've recorded it with such a depth ki aisa lagta hai ki aapke itni duri pe kahin pe koi cheez vibrate kar rahi hai. Beautiful. So things like these are those small joys of life. In every episode kuch ek mil jata hai to bada maza aa jata hai. Not every time do you get to create such magic, but every time it happens it's a high. And of course being behind the microphone and performing Bhaskar Bose has been the most gratifying experience, man. It's just amazing to be that character.
That's wonderful. And I want to double click on the technical aspects of this. Any other secrets like this, like that have become part of how you produce podcasts? The binaural sound and the depth was something that's definitely there. And I know you talked about treating it as pretty much a living organism, but any other secrets like this that you've discovered and made part of how produces the shows?
Well, most of all, definitely actors के साथ में जो चीज हमने discover करी है, most of the actors, कई सारे voice actors is a different genre now. That is something also that we figured out, that a lot of actors जो cinema या theater में अपने बॉडी का बहुत प्रयोग करते हैं, या because as an actor you have so many tools that you use when it comes to expressing whatever the emotion you want to express, but over here you are restricted to just your voice. So the entire genre of voice acting is something that I enjoyed in the last couple of years, working with a lot of actor friends of mine. So अब ये एक अलग specialization बन गई है. That is another one thing that I figured out, that as convincing as you are in front of the microphone, and one thing that I tell my actors every time, if you are genuinely scared, if you, for example, in the horror show, if you are genuinely scared, the listener will start feeling that emotion too.
Right.
So that transfer of emotion from the actor to the listener, because like I always keep on saying that the listener is a part of the show, he's inside the scene with my characters at that point of time. So wo pass on जो चीज होती है actors से, that is something that we've developed kind of a thing in the last few years and really enjoying it. A lot of my actor friends who come over here, they're enjoying the experience here. कई सारे मेरे जितने भी actors आ रहे हैं to perform in different, they're saying that, dude, we've been performing in front of the audience for so many years, or in front of the camera for so many years, but this is another experience altogether.
That's brilliant. So do you workshop it differently? Is there a certain process? Or are there some cheat codes that you have for मतलब जो शरीर का प्रयोग ना करके आवाज में लचक लाने के लिए, are there any cheat codes that there are or a different kind of a workshop?
Yeah, so definitely we've been working with all the actors जितना हो सके उनके साथ time spend करता हूँ मैं और यही share करता हूँ उनके साथ जो कुछ मैंने experience किया है in the last so many years, learn from the masters myself, and one thing that I figured out is breathing is everything. Sahi breathing in front of the microphone, कई बार you don't even need words to express yourself. Just your breathing does the magic. So that's what we do a lot with the actors, and not only for microphone here. I think this is the basics that we learned from on stage. And theater projection जिसे कहते हैं, कई बार theater projection की जरूरत पड़ती है, कई बार microphone के साथ एक रिश्ता बनाने की जरूरत पड़ती है. You almost make friends with that microphone, and he does the rest. Picks up what needs to be picked up and avoids what shouldn't be.
Beautiful. To bring this episode to a close, and I've just thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. There's so much for me to learn as well as a podcaster. But apart from that, I love the passion with which you talk about podcasting. I mean, so many years doing such wonderful work, and yet the passion with which you talk about podcasting and the output that you put out. There are two questions that I will ask you before we bring this to a close. First is, like I mentioned, I mean, podcast की शुरुआत हुई थी आईपॉड के साथ. आईपॉड पहली बार आया 2004-2005 में. आज आईपॉड नहीं है पर पॉडकास्ट है. iPod has metamorphosed into something completely different. Where do you see this space now going in the next 3 to 5 years, specifically in India? Or let me rephrase that actually. Where do you want it to go in the next 3 to 5 years?
Natural progression, Vineet. जिस तरीके से जहां का बहाव इसे लेकर जाए, अच्छी जगह की तरह लेके जाए, हमेशा से एक पुअर कजन के तरीके से ऑडियो मीडियम रहा है टू द विजुअल मीडियम. हमेशा मतलब वीडियो बड़ा भाई, ऑडियो छोटा भाई, उस टाइप वाली दुनिया में रहा है. बट सबकी अपनी अपनी जगह है, सबका अपना अपना काम है, सबका अपना तरीका है. वेब की अपनी एक अलग स्पेस है. पीपल हु वांट टू डू स्टेज, दैट्स अ डिफरेंट वर्ल्ड. पीपल हु वांट टू ओनली मेक सिनेमा, दैट्स अ डिफरेंट वर्ल्ड. पीपल हु वांट टू dabble into everything. Audio medium and this podcast as a genre that has or as a medium that is brimming right now, in the coming years will have its own growth. People will decide which way it needs to move on to. As nothing is certain. There is no set formula or no format for anything that works over here. So iska bhi koi formula as such to kahin pe mujhe dikhai nahi de raha. I wanted to have it like our discussion of today was all about living organism. Let it be like a living organism. Let it breathe. Let it grow its own growth.
Beautiful. I think बनता ही है ये सवाल आपसे पूछना. मेरा अगला सवाल, what would be your advice for young podcasters, young people who are exploring the audio medium, specifically for fiction, but beyond fiction as well? From your learnings now, multiple successful podcasts under your belt, what would be your advice to young podcasters just starting out?
Well, it's a beautiful. People are expressing themselves. They are doing it in different ways. Somebody's doing poetry, somebody's rapping. I mean, I'm so proud of the new generation, जिनकी शब्दावली, जिनके शब्दकोश में इतने शब्द हैं, जिनकी डिक्शनरी अच्छी है, जिनकी जबान से अच्छे अल्फाज निकलते हैं, बातें करते हैं. मैं आज when I listen to rappers from the streets of Mumbai, sometimes some of them drop such heavy bombs on you with those, and I'm like, this boy is 21 years old and he's coming from a space which is so beautiful, and उसके लिए उनके पास शब्द हैं. Most of the times, most of the people want to say so much, but they don't have words for it. Everybody wants to express, Vineet. Everybody wants to tell a tale, say a story, but they don't have the words for it. That's all we need sometimes. Just bring it all together. And if you have a story to tell, go ahead and tell it now.
Beautiful. I mean, I love both the optimism and the simplicity of what you just said. And I couldn't agree more. I'm on the wrong side of 30 now, and I see really talented young people coming up on this side, and it gives me a lot of heart and a lot of hope for the kind of entertainment that we can see coming out on podcasts. My last question to you, it is something that I ask almost all my guests before I let them go, is one piece of entertainment. You can share more than one as well, but one piece of entertainment that has stuck with you, that's important to you, that has had profound impact on Mantra and the way Mantra is now creating. One piece of entertainment as a recommendation for my listeners.
Visual or podcast, any of it?
Both.
Yeah, I don't know, man. There's so much that I enjoy. I enjoy watching loose talk at times. जो मोइन अख्तर साहब का
Right.
show हुआ करता था, the Pakistani show, and oh my God, they're so hilarious. Such so many characters to do. Shekhar sir's shows that used to initially happen with the Movers and Shakers, Carry On Shakers, that Tonight Show that he used to do.
Beautiful.
That was something that I go back to, and what a brilliant! I think he was one of the finest orators that we've had on Indian television. Javed Jafri, I love a lot. So every time I hear him do anything, all his old shows from the Channel V days, the BPLOA and or whatnot that I used to watch him do. So those are some crazy piece of, good stuff. Those are anchoring based stuff. So this is something that and I've already told you the kind of shows that I love listening to, the audio shows that I've enjoyed in the last couple of years, all the fiction stuff that I hear, Limetown being one of my top favorites. In the podcasting world, the guys who I really love listening to is Anuva Pal, Kunal, and Jose and Suresh Menon. They're the best they could ever be. So some great people to listen to. And now you, Vineet, I'm going to be following your stuff too.
Oh, wow, I'm just humbled at you saying that. Thank you so much. But आपने जावेद जी का नाम लिया और मुझे याद आई, last time I heard him talk was at the NRCCA protests. It was a very weird place to hear him talk, but he still has it.
Oh, yes.
He hasn't lost it one bit.
Absolutely.
It was wonderful to hear him speak.
Absolutely. तेज तर्रार हैं और हमेशा से, that's the beauty of it all. At the end of the day, if you're blessed with words and the power of expressing, do you choose to do it or not? That is also a big question that I've asked myself all these years.
Wonderful. And on that note, we will bring this episode and this conversation to a close. Mantra, it was fantastic having you here. It was great having this conversation, and right after hearing you speak in my ear as Bhaskar Bose, and just such a wonderful hour spent together talking to you. I hope you had fun.
Adbhut katha.
Beautiful. With that, we come to the end of another wonderful conversation on storytellers and story sellers. It's difficult times again in India with the coronavirus spiking up once again. So I hope you all are staying safe. Please wash your hands, maintain physical distancing, wear masks. Please definitely wear masks. Don't step out unless you really need to, and we'll all get through this together. With that, this is me, Vineet, with Mantra here saying goodbye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week, Cedar Tires and TheWholeTruthFoods.com. Thank you for your support. We did a bunch of cock and bulls this week. We had guests like Ayushi Amin and Puneet Mania for that. Besides that, Vasanti Hariprakash was on, as well as Jay Alani, a paranormal investigator. Really great week on Cyrus Says. Do check it out. Tune into This Round Is On Me for an episode recorded from Gulmarg featuring one of India's professional alpine skiers, Arif Khan, who's looking forward to representing India at the Beijing Olympics. On The Habit Coach, Ashton has a chat with Kunal Rajput, the popular fitness trainer who recently completed 7 rounds of his Unlock workout series. The reunified, simplified gang of Tony, Naren, Chuck, and Shrikant discussed NFTs on the latest episode. On The Millennial Athlete, Tanvi and Shlok looked back at all the England championships of the year so far and discussed the interesting highlights of the same. Also on Thale Harate, our Kannada podcast, Ganesh spoke to Archana Shyam of Antharanga Theatre in the latest episode. And on Kadai podcast, our Tamil show, Kavita Jiva shed light in another story about the bravery and excellence in the governance of the Pallava dynasty. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Hi, I'm Zarina Poonawalla, host of the Empowering Series podcast on the IVM network. I happen to be a peak performance coach and leadership coach by profession, and I'm here to share with you productivity tools, life-altering techniques, and real-life hacks to help you achieve your maximum potential in everything you do, your relationships, professions, careers. So tune in every Monday to unleash your inner power. Be safe, be well, be empowered.